Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Empowering Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm Glenn Harper.
Julie Smith.
What's going on, Julie?
It's a good day today.
Why?
Well, the weather's kind of okay. I have an extra shot of espresso in my coffee.
Ooh.
Didn't get much sleep, but I'm feeling good.
All right. Well, this is a shout out to our sponsors, Caribou Coffee. They love us all the time. Well, we've got an amazing guest today. I'd like to introduce Scott Fleszar, a CEO in B2B vertical SaaS. He also dabbles as a senior advisor for SafeSend while being an owner of Mac Real Estate Ventures. His prior 20 years work experience was in many senior leadership positions at Thomson Reuters. We met Scott back in 2018 when he was visiting Ann Arbor on a sabbatical from his post in Switzerland. Once you meet this guy, you realize not only he's a good dude, but he also has an incredible gift/skill set to engage with people and actually listen to them. Even though he's a Michigan fan and alumni, he's one of the good guys. His passion is finding someone with a vision and building the company, team, culture, and product around that vision. As a fellow accountant, Scott not only sees the debits and credits, but he has perfected the intangible attributes of psychology, leadership, and execution. These traits are elusive to most people. There are dreamers and doers. Scotty is a doer. Once he's tasted the entrepreneurial nectar, he is unstoppable in his quest to be on the entrepreneurial journey bus. Thanks, Scott, for being on our show.
It's a pleasure to be here. Wow, what an introduction. I don't know that I'm worthy of all that, but I'm really excited for this conversation. The first thing I'll say is I'm a fan. Glenn and Julie, I think we first met maybe even before 2018 at one of kind of the earlier partner summits, and I've just been a fan of seeing all the things that you've gotten involved with, how you've grown your firm, other entrepreneurial activities that you've been involved with, and just all of my career has been in roles where you serve accounting firms with software and technology. And one of the joys for me is just seeing firms grow, people grow, and get involved with a variety of things. And Glenn and Julie, you've both been you've established a high bar for all the things that you've done and all the things you've gotten involved with. And I also will say that I didn't know if I'd ever be on this podcast, being a University of Michigan degree holder and living in the Ann Arbor area, but I'm really happy to be here. So
We must be at the bottom of the bottom. No, I'm just
No. We changed all the names and dates to protect the innocent. That's how we do it. Well, we love to, when we start on this process of bringing on a guest, and again, we have the privilege of knowing you prior to, but our fans don't. So we wanted to kind of get a feel of where you came from, what you do. And
fans, wait, I thought we paid people to download.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I got a fund for that.
Yeah.
But it looks like you grew up in New Boston, Michigan, which is, from what I can tell, it's a massive suburb south of Detroit, just below the Detroit airport. And I think it's true that McNasty's Saloon is the only place in Michigan you can wear cowboy boots and hat and blend in. Is that true?
For you to even mention New Boston and McNasty's is blowing my mind right now. But yes, New Boston is my hometown, right near Metro Airport, Detroit Metro Airport. And I'm born and raised in Southeast Michigan, and I'll say humble beginnings. Went to Eastern Michigan University, got an accounting degree, and kind of a funny story there, which might kick things off for this conversation is. I go to Eastern Michigan University after average high school, I'll say academic standing, and I'm getting my accounting degree. And the only reason I got my accounting degree is I went to Eastern Michigan, and I had this idea that I was going to get a business degree. I didn't know which business degree, and in Accounting 101, which every business major has to take, the instructor said, accounting's a great major to have because the accountants are the ones that make decisions about who gets laid off, and they're not going to lay themselves off. And I said, that's a good enough reason for me. Why don't I get an accounting degree? And then, forward to my senior year, I'm like, okay, my grades are good, not great. I don't have any experience. I better do an internship. And that's when I went down to career services. This is, the fall semester of my senior year. And they set me up with an interview for an internship with, at the time, one of the big six accounting firms, Deloitte and Touche, and went to the interview and totally got eaten alive, was not prepared at all. And I just realized, wow, I'm just not ready to step into the professional arena. And also, I don't know that I want to work in an accounting firm and serve clients. And I'm close to getting my degree. Went back to career services, and they said, hey, there's some small, I was tail between my legs, but there's some small software company down the road called Creative Solutions. They do something with accounting software. You might want to check them out. Interviewed there, went much better, and started as a product support rep at a small technology company that was designing software for accounting firms. And that really started my career. And for me, what was unique about it, and I'm sure lots of people have these types of stories, you get a degree and you think you're going to do something with it, and then you do something totally different. So I was able to leverage my accounting degree, but very differently. I wasn't in an accounting firm, wasn't serving clients, but I was at a technology company designing tools for accounting firms. So that was how I got my kind of, I'll say, start into the profession, and really been at technology companies ever since.
So when you were in living in New Boston, you got what your mom and dad do? Did they have real jobs? Were they entrepreneurs, or they worked for the man?
Yeah, my mom didn't work. My mom stayed at home and
Mhm.
had a very important job raising the
Boy,
kids and running the household. And my dad worked actually in computer science, early in computer science, working with early databases, and working for a big organization. So not entrepreneurial, but my grandmother was actually very, very influential in my life, and she was the one that really, I would say, influenced me regarding just the work ethic and the importance of just showing up, and the idea that you better be humble, and not try to be the smartest person in the room, and how you treat people is very important. And so I actually credit my grandmother, maybe even more than my parents, for the kinds of influence that she had on me, and kind of how that's guided me throughout my life, really.
Did your grandma live close to you then growing up?
Yeah, actually, I lived with my grandma for most of my through my teen years, essentially. And my parents had gotten divorced, so I was actually living with my grandma and my father, and she became just a huge influence on me, and someone that I always credit her for the successes I've had in life, personally and professionally. I really credit to her in the way that she helped guide me, and essentially steer me away from pitfalls in life. So
well, it's funny at that age and going through all those things. It's just somebody to believe in you and tell you can. It just takes a little bit, and it makes such an impact for people. And like I said, you can see this is what for 50, 60 years later from that. I'm kidding. 20, 30 years, it makes such an impact that you look back and go, wow, somebody just said I could, and they guided me and helped me, and here you are.
right, it not only said you could, and was supportive, but also tough love too. So
Oh boy.
so so it was okay. Now get out there and do it. And they're you're not going to sit around the house. You're not going to take advantage of any situation. One of the things I tell my kids, I've got 3 kids, and they're great kids, but I tell them fundamentally is, you are entitled to nothing, and you have to remember that, um, if you haven't ever faced adversity, if you haven't ever dealt with adversity, um, you know, the idea that smooth sailing is always going to be, how life rolls for you, it's just not going to be the case. So you have to go in a mindset you're entitled to nothing, and no one owes you anything. And if you have that mindset, that's the right mindset to, be thinking about how you develop, especially professionally, as you get out into the workforce.
Grandma probably had a big wooden spoon too that she swapped people with. Yeah, that's how grandmas roll.
Absolutely.
You don't want to mess with that. Uh,
So growing up, so you talk about your grandmother. Did you ever paint rocks, do a newspaper route, try to mow lawns? Did you ever have any of that entrepreneur, in you growing up that kind of, maybe drove you a little?
Yeah, actually, one great experience, that I call upon, my learnings, from this, across my whole life. So I, in New Boston, worked at essentially kind of a combination florist and flower grower. So we had fields, grew flowers, it grew cut flowers, and you'd cut these flowers and you'd take them and you'd sell them at the farmer's market. So I'd get to this farm at 2:30 in the morning. We'd
Ooh.
load up the truck and we get to the Detroit Eastern Farm. The Detroit Farmers Market is called Eastern Market. We get to Eastern Market by 4:30. The wholesale market started at 5 a.m., went to 5 to 6, and the retail market started at 6 a.m. And that whole experience in the retail market, you've got, stores, retailers coming up and wanting to buy, flowers in bulk. And it's all about negotiation. And I remember early on, they would want, I'd say, okay, these flowers are $4 a bunch. Well, I only want to spend $3 a bunch. And then you'd have to remember quarters, and you'd have to be really good about understanding how to anchor high so that you can eventually get the price that you want. And that was the wholesale market. Then the retail market would start, and it would be working with individual customers. And that whole experience was fantastic, just dealing with customers, dealing with, all the fickle customers that are out there, and understanding how to manage people and all walks of life. And so yes, working at the farmers market was a great experience for me, and taught me lots of life lessons and business lessons.
I feel like that's on your resume. Should be a commodities broker in the Detroit exchange.
Right. So there was recently, it's funny you bring this up because I was talking to someone else about it. There was recently this Wall Street Journal article that basically said teens these days do not need fancy internships. They need real jobs where they're working in restaurants, they're working in retail, they're dealing with, unreasonable demands from customers. They're dealing with, scheduled demands that are going to be at odd hours. They're dealing with the public, and it's not, early on. These parents think I have to get my, kid into some fancy office with some title for their internship. Well, they need to get out there, roll their sleeves up, and work with the public, work with people, develop people skills. And that's what I did at the farmers market. And I totally agree with this article. And I was actually just giving a talk to a college classroom, and I was referencing this about how important it is to have these jobs and spotlight these jobs once you're starting to get into the professional workspace, because entrepreneurs understand those types of jobs are where you cut your teeth and you kind of, learn to interact with people and engage with people.
I've said for a long time that I believe at least my kids have to serve or bartend for a part of time, because they have to learn how to think quick on your feet. That, I think, gives you emotional intelligence, because you cannot react. Like all the things you just said, I couldn't agree more with.
It's funny. It's the mindset now is there's no jobs out there. Not if you want to work 40 hours a week. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many the intangibles. There's a skill set, and then there's holistically looking at things. And how old were you when you were getting up at the 2 a.m, which is awesome, by the way?
16.
16. So game on.
Yeah. Has it stuck with you at all? Like some of that early, early morning routine?
Yeah, I am an early riser, not that early, but yeah, I still am an early riser, and I like to. I personally like the quiet that you have in the morning to get heads down work done. Strategic thinking, I think, is really. I think I'm sharpest strategically in the morning. Once you're working with people and there's more distractions, yeah, then you're still working and still doing good things. But I like the early morning hours to do heads down, really deep thinking work and strategic work.
Growing up, did you play sports? Were you an athlete, like in team sports or individual sports?
He's an athlete. You can tell.
That's very kind of you, Glenn. Yes, I was a basketball player, loved playing basketball, played high school basketball, even though I was vertically challenged. But yes, the team. So I'm a team sports kind of guy, and I love, all the stories about great teams and leadership and how teams gel and there's come together and how they learn to the old saying with basketball is that the best team is not the team that has the five best players, it's the team that has the five players that play best together. And I totally agree with that. So,
It's funny, the team sports are good, but I also know you play golf, which is definitely not a team sport, but that's just to torture you, right? To get inside your own head. Most of the
so
time, that's how us golfers look at it.
yeah, totally. I do like to golf, but it's mainly to hang out with my buddies. I'm
Yeah,
not very good at it. It is is a humbling game. At some point I hope to get better at it, but you're right. That is very much you're out there on your own and you're in your own head. And
very place.
it's certainly a game that requires mental sharpness.
So you're sitting there and you're brokering flowers at 2 a.m. to the wholesalers, the retailers, and then you're like, yeah, I got to get to college, and you decide to go to Eastern Michigan. How'd you pick that school? Just because it was close by? Um,
Yeah, I'm chuckling because for my kids, I got one out of college. I got one that's a senior in college and one's a freshman in college. So my wife and I are empty nesters as of the last 6 weeks, which is new and different, and our house is very quiet. But for our kids, there was I'll say quite a bit of process around visiting schools, evaluating them. There's obviously information online. I didn't have any of that back in the 80s, 19 class of 90. So yeah, I went to Eastern Michigan because it was close to home. Um, it was affordable, and I could get in. And that was really the extent to which I thought about it. And I knew they had a business school, and I wanted to get a business degree. And there wasn't much. There wasn't much I was thinking about beyond that. So it was pretty simple.
Was your grandmother, I don't want to say forcing you, but a strong force behind saying, you've got to go to college, you've got to figure this out, you've got to get something bigger and better?
Absolutely. So my grandmother for sure, and also my father. And I was just talking to a classroom I mentioned, and you know, it seemed back in 1989, 1990, it was if you want to make something out of your life, you need to get a college degree, and that was the path I took. And I would never talk anyone out of getting a college degree today, but today I think it's different. I think there's just different paths you can go down. I was telling these students, I said, you might want to get into the trades, and that's going to be a different way. And I think the trades, you can do very well for yourself there. And there's other people that are professionals that never got a college degree. I still think a college degree is very good, and I think there's can be great return on investment. But back when I made the decision, it was that is, there isn't that is the path you need to take. Otherwise, you're selling yourself short, which I think is a little bit different today. But yeah, that was my mindset back then.
yeah, they didn't have the dock worker salaries like they have now back when we went to college. Like that's where
Right.
you can go work, make your 300,000 a year working on the dock. But it's a whole different story. But it's funny, when you pick the school you go to, a funny story. I picked Ohio State because it was close, it was cheap, and they actually accepted me. And I was like, well, that's cool. And then I realized later that they had to accept me. It's like, dang it. I thought I was special, but I was not. So here you are, you go to school, you're in Eastern Michigan and you're doing your thing, and you decide, I'm good here. You're going to go to work, and then you have this epiphany that lets you go back to school at a Pee Wee football school, University of Michigan, to earn your MBA in strategy and leadership. Like, how did this come along? Say, you know what? Accounting was cool, but I need this MBA in strategy and leadership. What was it? The company said, hey, we would like you to do this, or you were just like, I got to have some more letters after my name?
Yeah, great question. So um, professionally, I had a really strong mentor that helped me in my career, especially early in my career at Creative Solutions, which became Thomson Reuters. I started at the small software company called Creative Solutions, and then Thomson Reuters acquired Creative Solutions, and she was a big advocate for me, and someone that mentored me, and at the time I had held roles in at this organization called User Services, so support, customer service, and training. And she had tried to recruit me into a completely different role. And it wasn't something I wanted at the time. And then she said, have you ever thought about getting your MBA? And that can probably allow you to better pivot your career. And also, again, at the time, it was certainly a stepping stone in corporate America to bigger and better things. So very fortunate that this was funded by Thomson Reuters, and they were looking to develop me as a leader. So I had great support from the organization. I had great support from this mentor, and my MBA was invaluable for me to really pivot my career, because I was basically in one function at Thomson Reuters for my first 12 years, got my MBA, and then I went and really started doing a lot of different things. That led to leading marketing for 5 years. Then I got into product management. Then I began running some smaller businesses for Thomson Reuters. So it was a big springboard for me. And certainly I had people, executives in the organization that were encouraging me to go down this path, and they saw potential in me, which is, I'm grateful for, and then I was able to do a variety of other things because it really broke me out of the mold of where I was at. I was very specialized, and then I became more of a kind of a strategic executive leader at that point. So
this is one of those cool things where Julie and I, we always are talking like megacorp, small business, megacorp, entrepreneurs, megacorp. It seems like the people that end up going to megacorp and they go there, and if they believe in them and they feel like, not, I wouldn't say safe, but feel like that the company believes them, the company will invest in you. And you have way more opportunities available to you than you would have at small company. It just doesn't work that way. And it's just a cool thing that they were able to recognize it, you accepted it, and you were able to do it, and you had a fabulous career there, from what I understand it. At some point, I think you were in Switzerland, and I didn't even know, it says on your bio that you learned you're fluent in English in Switzerland, which I think means German, French, and Italian. Did you have to learn all three of those languages to live there?
Switzerland, first of all, I did do, we did an overseas assignment in Switzerland. Thomson Reuters has offices there. Switzerland is a beautiful country. So, feel very blessed and fortunate to have had that opportunity. It was great personally, professionally, for our family. And yes, in central Switzerland, literally there's signage there that has English, Swiss German, Italian, and French on it, because there's influence of all those countries there. And we learned enough Swiss German to get by, like ordering a beer, gross a beer, and saying hello, grüezi, but certainly didn't need to be fluent in any of those, and I'm not fluent in any of those languages.
Which, it's funny because you think they have their own currency, you think they have their own language, but no, it's a blend, which is kind of funny.
Yes, yeah.
So you took your family then to Switzerland, from what I'm understanding, and so you immersed your kids into that culture, and they did school over there and everything?
Yeah. So my boss at the time at Thomson Reuters, I'm here in the Ann Arbor office. He comes in my office and says, "Hey, I've got a potentially really unique opportunity for you." And I knew we had offices there, and I knew people that had done these assignments over there. And he laid it out to me. And at the time, I freshman in high school, a sixth grader and a third grader, and came home and spoke to my wife. She wasn't immediately thrilled about this idea of going over there for 2 to 3 years. But we both said, okay, if the kids are in for this, then we'll do it. But we sat the kids down and said, hey, this is a great opportunity. However, we're not going to force you to go. So this is something you need to think about. And the one piece of advice I'll give you is you might not ever have this opportunity again. So just remember that. And my daughter was an immediate no, and she was completely against it. She just, she was on an ice hockey team here that was doing really well, and she had friends, and she just, for her it was an absolute no. My two boys were a little bit more open to it, but then behind the scenes, she did her own research. She connected to the international school on LinkedIn. I'm sorry, on Instagram. She chatted with friends of ours who had done this before, with their one of their daughters, and she had basically, not without telling us, I did some research. She came to me like a week and a half later, and she goes, "Is this still a possibility?" I said, "Well, I kind of already told my boss no." So, but she said, "I'm in," and I was really proud of our kids because this wasn't easy for them, and it was going to be adversity for them. New culture, new school, new friends, new currency, new language. Even though international school, it's English based, but um, it was a fantastic experience for them. They loved it. They still have friends that are. My son was just in Finland for a few days, hanging out with his buddies there,
Oh, they
and
will.
yeah. So it was a great experience for us, as a whole family, and for our kids, and because they had to deal with some adversity. I mean, going to Switzerland doesn't sound like adversity, but for high school students, middle school students, this is all kinds of change for them. I just feel they're so much better off, not only for the, international experience for itself, but just getting out of their comfort zone. They got way out of their comfort zone, and so did myself and my wife, and we very much
You know,
enjoyed it.
this is, you said something that resonates. Like, you asked your kids, like back when I was growing up, your parents didn't ask their kids nothing. You just did what they said. For
Right.
you to do it in a different way to get their buy-in, already you knew you had those skill sets, but to put your family first on that, to recognize, professionally and personally, it was a big deal. But you're like, let them make the decision. Like, who lets a third grader make a decision?
But I can't get over
That's
is
great.
like, how is your daughter the oldest one?
No, she's the middle.
Oh man,
So
I
she
didn't
was
have
in,
it
she was in
figured
middle
out.
school.
But she's gonna do great
Oh
things.
boy.
The fact that she had enough emotional intelligence to be like, maybe I, gut react, like, like reacted just right off the thing, and then to go research to figure it out herself and not use her parents at all. I mean,
She'll be on the podcast in a few years.
yeah, I
Sure.
mean, what's she gonna do?
Yeah, very proud of her. So she's a senior at the University of Michigan. She plays ice hockey there, and she already has a job in investment banking in New York City for after graduation. So in July of 2025, she'll be in New York City working in investment banking. I hope she knows what she's getting into, but I'm really proud of her. And yeah, she's all three of my kids are really on great paths, and I think at least in part it was because of the international experience and just, again, getting out of their comfort zone.
Well done, well done, Dad.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, the University of Michigan is really easy to get into. So it's not like an exclusive school or anything, but I think you picked there because they have picture books, which is important because that's easy to get in. I'm totally messing with you. University of Michigan is a fabulous institution for education, but I feel like once you got in there as well, that's a great alumni network. You get plugged in everywhere with that. And now that you're back, I guess you left for a little Switzerland, you're back living, um, got you living in Pinckney, Michigan, another thriving metropolis of 2,415 residents. Um, and of course, the hometown of Chris Sabin of WWE fame. Did you know this? This is
I
crazy.
didn't know that. I,
Yeah,
I did not know
big
that.
deal on the WWE. But um, again, you settled back, but you guys decided not to live in the major city. You're living in like a small town and doing your thing. And how'd that work out for you? How'd you make that decision? Did you feel like you could live there? You didn't have to be in the big city, or how'd you settle back in Michigan just because it's home?
Yeah, just because it's home. So Southeast Michigan is kind of home for us. We've got family here, and so when we came back from Switzerland, certainly we probably could have decided to live anywhere, but this is home to us.
Mhm.
Call us crazy. We like the change of season, and
Like,
yeah, we like the lakes, and yeah, for us, it just feels like home. So
So you come back from Switzerland, you're back in Michigan, you're still working with Thomson Reuters, but at some point that changes.
yeah, so yeah, the while I was in Switzerland, quite a bit of change going on with the business back in the U.S. The business that serves accounting firms of software and technology. When I got back, there was new leadership, and I was part of that organization for about 8 months after getting back, and then they decided to move in a new direction, and they essentially combined some teams, and my role was eliminated. And that certainly was a little unexpected, kind of a kick in the pants, but really an opportunity for me to reset and just decide, okay, what do I want to do at this point? I've had this, great career at Thomson Reuters, and I have absolutely nothing but gratitude for all my years at Thomson Reuters. Just tremendous. I was able to hold various leadership roles. They funded my, MBA. They had me, do an international assignment. Just a tremendous career at Thomson Reuters. But that's when I realized how important networking is and how important your network is. So I started a network. This was the summer of 2019. And I had met the two co-founders of a business called SafeSend a year earlier at the conference, and reached out to one of the co-founders, and it was just networking, saying, "Hey, I'm looking for my next opportunity. If you know of anything, or can we just catch up and talk, about how your business is doing?" One thing led to another, and I met with the co-founders. And realized they have a great business and a great product, but it's small, and they don't have expertise with growing and scaling a business. And I realized, wow, I can really help with that, because that's what I did for years at Thomson Reuters. And so joined in Q4 of 2019. And at the time, the one co-founder that was CEO, he indicated, I love working on the product, and I like figuring out ways that technology can solve real world problems for accounting firms. I don't necessarily enjoy running a company and leading a company on a day-to-day basis. So if this works out, potentially there's an opportunity for you to lead the business overall. I came on as a chief operating and strategy officer. Really embraced the team there, and began to help with growing and scaling that business. And then a year later, I was appointed CEO, and was really kind of the pinnacle of my career was growing this business, and being part of a business that when I joined was roughly 40 employees and grew to almost 200. Revenues over the 4.5 years I was there grew 8x, and great net promoter scores for the product, great employee engagement and low turnover, great culture. So I was able to build out that leadership team, grow and scale the business, really put the different functions in place, and lead a high growth business. So it was just a fantastic opportunity for me, and I really grateful to the co-founders for giving me that opportunity, and then having the trust in me to lead the organization, and then drove it to a high growth business that got outside private equity investment. And so that was really a big career pivot for me. I went from a big global multinational corporation to really a small organization, relatively speaking, high growth business, and a vertical B2B SaaS business, and that was just fantastic. I just had a blast doing it. So
it's funny how that career path just bounces around, and you end up where you're supposed to be. And as you continue on this, I assume you're still at SafeSend, right?
Yeah, right now I'm in a senior advisor role with them. So I work with the board on kind of strategic activities, and just looking out at the marketplace and understanding what's going on at the marketplace. But yeah, I'm still there, but I'm also at this point kind of looking for what my next opportunity might be in terms of, I'd love to get back into leading a business, potentially leading another technology business. So at this point, I'm still working with SafeSend, but also looking for my next opportunity, which I'm really fortunate to have flexibility to do that. And I've been doing a lot of networking, and doing things like these podcasts are great for me to meet new people and to get exposure.
So I'm going to make a couple of statements here, and
Please do.
this is me being quiet now, being loud. SafeSend though, I was waiting for you to full circle that. SafeSend works with Thomson Reuters clients. And so I think you were able to take, what TR gave you as a corporate conglomerate and use that at SafeSend. But I think the closing of that circle is the fact that you somehow found yourself back in that circle, right?
Yeah.
It's like the mafia. You get sucked right back in.
Right. Glenn, earlier you made the comment about, how at big organizations you can really take advantage of lots of opportunities, and I think sometimes big organizations get a bad rap. But one of the downsides of a large organization is, you don't get to know everyone in the business, and there's just, more layers, more bureaucracy. What I loved about SafeSend, what I still love about SafeSend, is you get to know everyone in the business. It's a flat organization. I was able to be involved in everything that we were doing as a business. And then because it's a platform, again, for accounting firms, and it really, helps accounting firms collect information they need from their clients to prepare tax returns and then deliver completed tax returns to their clients. That meant working with Thomson Reuters, again, very closely, as well as the other vendors out there. So you're right. It was quite a bit of overlap in terms of this new culture I was in, and then also working very much with the large organizations that I had all my experience with prior, and it did almost come full circle in that I was able to, one of the things about working in large organizations, it's important, your structure is important, and cross-company communication and collaboration is important. And those are some of the kinds of things I was able to, put in place at SafeSend, which is build out a leadership team, build out an organization structure that's going to support growth, make sure we have great cross-company communication and collaboration, and make sure that we celebrate wins and recognize people and individuals, build a great culture where no one feels isolated, that they always have resources and they can get help if they run into challenges. So yes, in what I like to think, Julie, is that I was able to apply a lot of the domain knowledge I'd picked up over a couple decades at Thomson Reuters and apply that in all the great, in all the best ways possible to help a small business grow and scale, and then also, work in partnership with an organization like Thomson Reuters.
When you have the small company, knowing the quote, the trade secrets and the speed you can implement, because you don't have a committee, you don't have to go market it to somebody else. For the big company, so you had the ability to move with speed over here and SafeSend, but at the same time, how TR worked, and you know how to get things done, which is very unique and very probably great for both companies.
Yeah, no. So Scott, a lot of our listeners are like growing their business. They're probably, resonating with you in regards to that small business and growing and scaling. And I think entrepreneurs have a hard time finding people like yourself that are going to run their business as if it's their own, but it's not. And I think that skill set, that quality is really hard to find. And I think you might be one of the, you're great at that. What advice could you give our listeners out there that are trying to grow and scale a business? And I think we hear this all the time of just no one does it like I would do it. And, to grow and scale, you can't be the master of everything, you just can't. So for our listeners, what advice could you give them as they're going through this from your standpoint?
Yeah, great question. I'll just give you some of the ways I tried to some of the ways I tried to do this at SafeSend, because certainly was very small when I got there, but then we grew where I had to also rely upon people. I wasn't able to, make all the decisions, do all the work. So, um, first of all, if you have someone that you're working with today, that's in your business today, that shows potential, I think there's really good value in investing in them, and getting to a point where if this person has potential and they're showing, the drive and passion that you would expect someone to have, that you would, trust to help run your business, you're going to need to invest in this person, and that's going to be, mentoring and developing them, and potentially that's certainly your own time, but then maybe outside resources, um, and and then you want to put guardrails in place. So they're not going to make every decision, exactly the way you would, and they're probably going to make some mistakes. But if you have guardrails in place, you give them the opportunity to grow and develop, and you can free yourself then to be doing other things. This classic, yeah, you're not working in your business, you're working on your business. You want to be in a position where you're working on your business and you're going to have people that you can trust, but you have to put guardrails in place. So I think maybe the first thing is just guardrails, is invest in them, develop them, but then give them guardrails and just know that they're probably going to make some mistakes. And then secondly, you want to have a culture of psychological safety. I think this is a huge, there was a leader I worked with at one point that said, when I lead, my people kind of fear me. And I think that's exactly the wrong approach that you want, because in that kind of environment, if mistakes happen, they're going to get buried and you're not going to understand what's going on. In an environment where there's psychological safety, that means your people are not afraid to raise their hand and say, "Hey, we got a problem." Raise their hand and say, "Hey, I made a mistake," and this is going to invite your people to be able to take calculated risks. You're going to need them to take calculated risks, and it's going to invite your people to feel comfortable that my leader has placed trust in me, doesn't expect me to be perfect, but expects me to get better. And I think that's maybe the third one, is a mantra of continuous improvement. If you instill a mantra of continuous improvement, the trend line to me was always important. I just want to make sure our trend line is that we're always improving, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. We want to be always improving. So, I don't know if that exactly answers your question, but if I think about those things, you want to invest in people that you feel have potential, put guardrails in place, support an environment of psychological safety so that people can be genuine and authentic, and they can raise their hand when things aren't going well, and they're not going to bury problems. And then can't even remember what I said last, but that the
Safe.
yeah, safe, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and you're right, finding these people is hard, and I always think when you're building out a team, as your organization grows, you're best off having a combination of people you've promoted from within and you've developed from within, and then some outside hires that bring in outside perspective, and can help you with blind spots that you might have as an organization, because everyone's working on the same things. So
It's so hard to, as an entrepreneur, to trust that somebody can do it, not necessarily as good as you, but it's more of like, can they take it and handle it and not screw it up? It's so hard for entrepreneurs to do that, but ultimately you will never get to the next level if you don't, right? And
absolutely,
your guardrail comment is probably the most resonant point. Like, they might screw up, but it's not going to sink the ship. It just might be a little dent.
right, exactly.
I think it's a great segue to one of my favorite questions, which is, what is your superpower?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to, stay humble and um, make sure that I'm always coming from a position of gratitude. But what I've had people tell me, people that I've been able to coach and mentor and lead, is that really is kind of my superpower, which is understanding organization dynamics, team dynamics, and building teams that are cohesive, that have people that not only do a great job in what they're asked to do or what their domain is or their function is, but then also make others around them better. So I love building teams. I love building cultures. I feel that's my superpower, and that's a combination of coaching and mentoring individual people, and then also thinking about team dynamics, how people work together. I will start, important strategic meetings oftentimes with statements like, I want to make sure everyone's checked their ego at the door. Egos are going to kill anything that we're trying to accomplish in this next meeting. And it's always trying to make sure that people are all working together and not competing against each other, and making the team better. So for me, it's building teams, it's building cultures, and building, when you have a great team and a great culture, those are high performing teams. And that's always what I'm looking for, is high performance teams. And for me, certainly, the metrics that I can point to for how some of the businesses I've led have done are impressive, and I'm certainly proud of that. But what I'm most proud of, and what the juice is for me, and what brings a smile to my face and brings me joy, is seeing people grow and develop and accomplish new things and take on new responsibilities. I love that, and those are the kinds of things I think about most about the joy I've had over my career.
So then I have one last question. This is a little different because, just a little different, but what is your end game? So you're an empty nester, you're sitting on the board of a company that you grew way bigger than probably you thought even at the beginning could be. You're looking for your next, beyond all of that, what's your end game?
Yeah, great question. I've been asking myself that.
Yeah.
Don't we all?
Yeah. As much as I love technology and I love the accounting profession, which is where I've spent all of my years, I really would love to do something with a little more purpose. At the end of the day, helping accountants be more productive, hey, that's great. But if I could do something that was a little bit more, purpose driven, that had, maybe more of a charter to help people or help, society, I'd love to be able to do that. I've had an opportunity over the last few months to work with a charitable organization that provides meals for those that don't have means, and that's been very rewarding and feels good. So I'd love to have some type of opportunity to do things that more clearly are helping humanity and are more purpose driven. And that's in part because I've got, I'm blessed and fortunate to have kind of the opportunity to do that if I'd like. So the canvas is kind of blank for me right now, but I guess my ultimate end game is, retirement doesn't sound fun at all. Sitting around doing nothing actually doesn't sound fun. I want to have a reason to get up every day. And if that reason is around helping people or helping humanity or, doing good, so to speak, that would be ideal. So that's probably my end game, Julie. And I'm just starting down that path.
So I love that answer, especially coming from kind of a non-entrepreneur, but there is no end game for you. And I think, driven, successful individuals, whether you're an entrepreneur or you take ownership of an entrepreneur's company, there is no end game because your mind can't sit still. You can't sit still. Like you said, you had to get up with some purpose and passion every day. And so I think, for our listeners out there, what a great full circle, right?
Yeah, you know too much. Why would you stop? Now you know the shortcuts. Your amount of effort to get results is exponentially less than it was 20 years ago because you know the shortcuts. So why would you stop?
I think also he's coming from a point of gratitude at this point where I don't want to say our younger selves don't understand that, but like when you get up in the morning and you're 26 years old going to your corporate job, that gratitude and, doesn't always come first. And I think you're at a point in your career where you start with gratitude and end with
He
gratitude.
put his time in. Now it's
Yeah.
time to enjoy the benefits of it. Well, I tell you, Scott, it was great having you on the show. I think our listeners will get a lot of cool nuggets out of this. And, if there's, do you have a plug where people can get a hold of you just in case they might need what you may have to offer?
Yeah, yeah, probably easiest to find me on LinkedIn. Scott Fleszar. Fleszar is hard to spell, but if you look up SafeSend, all one word, SafeSend, you'll see me there
And
as one of the people with that organization. So
we'll link we'll link that in our show notes for everyone to be able to get to you.
that'd be great. Yeah, my LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. So
Awesome. Well, Scott, appreciate you being on the show. This is Glenn Harper.
Julie Smith.